Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Byron School Board meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. We are at the District Administration and Community Service Building. And would you send this roll call, please?
Yep. Dan Reed.
Here.
Mike Denny.
Here.
Matt Priggy.
Here.
Amy Harvey. Here. Harvey Bird.
Here.
And Craig Fox. And Sharon Craig are absent.
Sharon's online.
Oh, online. Sorry, Sharon.
Sharon, are you there? She was.
Yeah. Sharon, can you hear us? Sharon? You can come back. She might be having technical difficulties. Before we get into the approval of the agenda, we'll check back in with her.
Okay. I'd like to have everybody stand up, take off their hats for this resolutions.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The vision for Byron Public Schools.
Joey, I don't think anybody can hear you.
All right.
Nope.
1 second, please.
The next thing on the agenda is a public forum and page.
Yeah, so the Byron School Board recognizes the value of partition by the public in deliberations and decisions on school district matters. At the same time, the school board recognizes the importance of conducting orderly and efficient proceedings with the opportunity for expression of all participants and respective views. While comments and questions are welcome during open forum, the law prohibits the board from discussing concerns about individual employees or students in a public meeting. We will stop the proceedings immediately if an employee or student privacy issues are raised and direct the speaker toward forward comments to individual employees or students to the superintendent. Because we're modeling civic discourse for our community, speakers must present their testimony in a respectful manner. Vulgarity, character attacks, malice, or specific complaints identifying staff or students by name or implication will not be permitted. The board will not deliberate, discuss, or engage in conversations with speakers during open forum. However, the board may ask administration to review the concerns presented.
Do we, Dr. Page, do we get any notes first? Anybody in the audience want to share thoughts? Okay, going down to number 6, is approve the agenda. You've hit it up.
Could I just say one thing? We just want to check, make sure Sharon
Oh, yeah, sure.
can hear us.
I just got a text message from Sharon, and she said that she's gonna log in on YouTube and just listen in, because she can't count on the connection, so she said she'd just listen in.
Okay.
Okay, should we mark her down then for being here?
No, she won't be able to.
Okay, vote. Right, so number 6 then is approve the agenda. You've had opportunity to look at the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Matt, approve, yeah, second. All in favor, say aye. Oh, no, we gotta do roll call.
Roll
right?
call.
Yep. Ann?
So for roll call, Dan Reed. Aye. Terry Clark.
Aye.
Matt Brady.
Aye.
Mike Denny.
Aye.
Ann Barbie.
Aye.
Marty Bird.
Aye. Next one is number 7 is the approval of the consent agenda. We had a chance to look at that. Does anybody want to remove or from the consent agenda?
I just had a quick question with respect to the resignations. I know that there was a couple of them that, parental leave and stuff, but there was one of them, I think, that was different. I think that, was on there. Was there any particular reason it was cited at all?
Which,
I think it was Dalton, just done. Okay.
7.7?
Yeah, or 7.9, I was just kind of curious.
He was a long-term substitute para
Okay.
in that position.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? Good. And only thing I'd like to say is, I'd like to thank Becky Demmer for her service for the school district, and she's gonna be retiring this year. So can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Matt and Jan. Roll call vote. Jan?
Craig.
I,
Dan.
Aye.
Emmy.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye. We do not have any unfinished business. Going down to number 9, new business. 9.1, 0 is Dr. Johnson. Dr. Page?
yes, good evening, board. We are providing an update here with Dr. Jonathan Locus from Winona State University. A little bit of background here before I turn it over to Dr. Locus. Our main concentration with board priority number 3 in the district operation plan is to create equitable and inclusive policies, settings, and instructional practices. We also work closely to ensure that equity is embedded in both of our priorities as well. We're working with Dr. Jonathan Locus this year and in the coming years to help us develop our equity work in the district. And he's here tonight to introduce himself and answer any questions.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Was that my cue?
that's your cue.
Okay, good. I didn't want to talk when I wasn't supposed to. So, thank you everybody for the invite. I'm happy to be here. Like Dr. Page mentioned, Jonathan, I work at Winona State University. I serve as the Associate Vice President for Equity and Inclusive Excellence. And I also, I teach in the College of Education. I teach in the EDD program, our Doctorate of Education program, and happy to be able to be with you all. So I wanted to just briefly kind of talk about what we were doing and kind of where we're at as far as timeline, and then just answer any questions about process, the why, the what, and just kind of get those questions out of the way. So we started pretty much working on this project right around October and November, and the goal was at that point to start by developing a survey that could then be used on the basis on culturally responsive teaching to then build and go up next to our equity audit, and for everything to build but to allow transparency throughout the entire process. So we had an opportunity, I had an opportunity to meet and work with some of the district leadership as far as being able to go through the survey, get feedback on the questions, make some changes, but also we had some dialogues about diversity and equity. Well, the survey, we ended up wrapping up wrapping the survey up right around December, and the survey was sent out at the top of January. Dr. Page and I talked earlier today. We've had about 80 people who filled out the survey. I was looking at some of the responses, some really, really good responses that I think are going to lend themselves to some wonderful conversations. So after we'll be closing the survey probably in about a day or two, we'll then take that data and that information, not only share, but then to come up with have a process where we have a professional development that is based upon the results from the survey. And one of the reasons that we wanted to do it that way is because we know and we understand that everybody has had different levels of experiences and exposure to diversity. So we wanted to make sure that regardless of where anybody is, that there can be progressive growth and movement at that stage. So we wanted to do a survey first to basically understand everybody's exposures and experience to diversity and equity, and then create the training around those responses, the professional development around those responses. So the survey's wrapped up. We'll be doing a professional development around the survey results. And then what we'll be moving into next within, I say, after we wrap up the professional development, we'll be moving into the equity audit process. And through that process, we'll be talking to, we'll be hosting some focus groups. We'll really be understanding what the climate and culture is within the school district, but along that process, also getting recommendations about things that we feel either needs to change or adjustments we can make to lend itself to more equitable outcomes, an environment where everybody feels welcome. And then we'll take those, as we go through that audit, we'll take those results, share them, because transparency is, again, an important part during this process. And then based on those results from the equity audit, then come up with an equity action plan. And that equity action plan will also include feedback from the district, feedback from the stakeholders. Pretty much this is a process that we want all stakeholders, and stakeholders will be defined loosely, I'm sure, by the board, parents, students. We'll define who those stakeholders are to make sure there's a time in the process where everybody gets to share what they feel about what we're doing and the district, the equity plan, and then to be able to have that equity plan, again, that's based on the equity audit results. And then that will push us through right around November, December of 2022. So that's just kind of a timeline of where we are right now. We'll be closing out the survey this week. We'll be delivering the professional development based on the survey results within a month or two. And then after that, we'll start the equity audit process where we'll start engaging with community stakeholders.
Thank you,
Dr. Page, is there anything that I missed you would like me to maybe elaborate on, or was that you think that summary will suffice?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Lucas, for providing that overview. And I would just open it up to board members if there's any questions for Dr. Lucas tonight and where we're at in the process.
Anybody have any questions?
All right.
Thank you, Jonathan, for showing up with us tonight.
Happy to be here.
All right.
And I joke with Dr. Page all the time. I'm on Zoom all day, and I see the same faces all the time. So I'm just happy to see some new faces on Zoom. So I appreciate the invite.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lucas.
Next item on the agenda is Todd for his report.
Good evening, and thank you guys for allowing me to join virtually tonight. I'll just walk through, attached to my report of the financials. Right now, everything is going according to our plan. our revenue and our expenses are gonna be higher than budget, but know that both of those is COVID related. So we continually work through our COVID funding. We got the funding of 500,000 and we spent that, so that's why those two look a little over. I'll stop right there and just ask you, are there any questions on kind of where our financials are at this point? If not, then on here is the timeline of our revised time, of our budget timeline. So we will review at the February working session, our revised budget, and then approve it at the March board meeting. I can't thank my administration team enough. We have done a deep dive. We've gone through, I believe we have Amanda left on Friday, but we've gone through with the principals and the directors and went through line by line of their budget, seeing where we can make changes for this year and next. So I do appreciate all our administrators taking time out of their busy day, getting kids back to school, and having the finance director coming and asking questions. So I appreciate their time for this. And then also on here for you guys is our adopted budget timeline. And our goal this year is going to be a little different than probably has been in the past, as this is a biennial funding year. We really are gonna wait on the state. So on there, you'll see that right now the board will see this in May and then approve it in June. We have to have it approved by the end of June. So again, you'll see the timelines where we're working through staffing right now. We'll work through enrollments, and then we'll bring all that stuff back to you around based on those timelines. And then I just want to give a couple of quick notes that I call it CRF Funding 2020. That ended as of December 30th, and we have finalized everything with the state, and we're good to move on from that. And then we did receive the first numbers of the CRF Funding 2021. We have not got that officially from the state of Minnesota, but we know there is some extra funding coming, and once we get that in, Dr. Page and myself will work with our administrative team to figure out where we can spend that. The good news on that funding is that goes until June of 2022. And as it's been on this agenda for a few times here already, we are still working on the 5-year model, and we will continually bring that forward. Our focus right now is getting 21 tied out, getting 22 started, and then building out to 2026. So I kind of went through that quickly. I will open it up to questions, comments, concerns.
One quick question with respect to the CRF funding for 2021. It says that there's been money set aside, and you'll let us have more information when that's available. But what I'm wondering, is that money earmarked, or can we use that to offset some of the other stuff you talked about on the noted financials, where our revenue is going to be up over 500,000, but our expenses are up 550. So, I mean, are we expecting that we can use that to offset the 50 that we're up on expenses? Or do we not know?
Dr. Page, you want to take that, or do you want me to answer that?
You can.
Okay, we don't know the exact number yet, so we will either use it to offset some of our previous expenses, or we will look at what that can be used for. So the first time when we got the CRF funding, the 2020, there are guidelines of what that money could be spent on, and it couldn't go back in time. It could only go from July 1st forward. So we don't have those details yet to know if we can spend it backwards or if it has to be from the moment we get the money going forward. So as we learn more about this, and I don't know if Dr. Page has more information, we'll definitely share with you.
Yeah, that's a great summary, Todd. As far as where we're at with our funding, as Todd outlined, we had specific guidelines. We're very stringent when we could use our 2020 fund. We have an indication, we're about 90% there of what the funds look like for Byron. As Todd pointed out here, is we don't yet have the guidelines or stipulations on what it can be used for or how it can be expended. So that's really what we're waiting for. And I don't know if that's going to be, as the legislature gets a little bit further on in the process, they're going to release that information. So we're waiting, anticipating daily to get some more guidance on how we can use it and go from there.
Any other questions for Todd? Todd, I want to thank you for being here with us tonight, and please thank your working staff too for all the work that they do.
Will do. Thank you guys very much.
9.1.2, Malia, high school principal. thank you for being here tonight with us.
Thank you. I came to talk a little bit about scheduling as we start to look at how we're going to operate next year at the high school. A big thank you goes to my guidance counselors who spend time with current 8th graders all the way to 11th graders, getting them registered for the next year. They go through every single individual registration, making sure that the registration guide itself is correct. And this year we had to do a little different model where they usually spend a lot of in-person time, but we were in a little bit of a hybrid and some distance learning in there. So we got a lot of help from our high school teachers in trying to make the system work this year. And then the guidance counselors then went through hand by hand each registration guide and got it all into the computer system. So once that's in, the computer system basically spits out how many sections you're going to have when you run your schedule for the following year. Knowing that our enrollment for next year is up by approximately 21 students based on the information from Forecast 5, we took a look at the sections that the computer system said we were going to run, and we were probably within 4 compared to the schedule we ran this year. So we're up by about 4 sections for next year. And when you think of sections in a high school, it's so different than sections in an elementary school. It does not equate to how many kids per class versus how many staff you have. You have to look at licensure of staff members, you have to look at how many required courses you have versus elective courses versus what you need for graduation requirements. So it isn't as simple as you have so many students, you get another staff member. So it's a kind of, the way we look at it is a great big puzzle piece. But what we've discovered in putting our information into the system is that we are up a couple more sections, but we are down in overloads. And an overload would be when a teacher teaches, we currently are on a 4-block schedule. If they teach 3 of those blocks, the 4th block is usually their prep hour. An overload is when they have to teach all of those blocks. So we are down in overloads. But we saw a dramatic increase in our industrial tech program. And I'm happy to say that this is an exciting thing for us. We have kids, even young ladies, who are excited to take those courses, and that's where we want to be. Giving kids hands-on opportunities in those classes is what we've been trying to build that program up to. So we would be looking at an increase of a 0.8 instructor to cover all 8 of those additional sections of kids that basically made their vote to have those classes. However, though, when you look at kids who vote to basically determine what courses you can run and what you can't run. So you have a similar amount of children, they only have so many votes. Well, those votes get distributed differently. And when that happens, some classes can't run and some classes can. And that's where the hard decisions come. Some of the classes that we are unable to run this coming year will be agricultural economics, which we just started last year. We didn't have enough votes for that class. AP computer science, music composition, advanced metals, and 2D design. The votes then shifted into these areas: introduction to education, project lead the way, which is class introduction to engineering A and B, project lead the way, digital electronics A and B, introduction to acting, Spanish 5, a 9th grade study skills, which is a 9th grade based intervention program, and EMT courses. So we will see some new courses come into play for some of our kids, and some of the courses we've ran in the past will sunset for a little bit until maybe those votes go back and we try and watch a little bit of a different type of balance. The other highlight that I would say we'll have for next year is we'll have a handful of what we call our C-Tech classes. We'll have Firefighter 1 and 2 with 37 kids signed up for next year. CNA, our Certified Nursing Assistant program, will have 38 kids signed up. That's the highest we've had so far. And our EMT course will run with 29. That is a total of 104 kids getting those hands-on class experiences which is by far the highest we've had so far.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, so I open it to any questions you might have.
Are those kids just from Byron? They're not, before we used to pair with other districts, but those
Good
are-
question. Yeah,
those
they are
different.
just our Byron High School kids.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah,
that's
me
great.
too. Me too.
So you said there's an increase in the,
Yeah.
you said there's an increase in the industrial tech. What areas had the increase? Look like advanced metals, no, but
Correct, but a lot of our woodworking programs, definitely our beginning woods program. We've got a lot of incoming ninth grade students who are coming out of the middle school with their instructor, Mr. Daggett, having good experiences and wanting to see what we have to offer. So we have the highest number in our beginning woods classes in that department.
Are you seeing any overlap with kids, like they're taking CNA and EMT and firefighter, or
Well,
different groups of kids between them?
I'm not able to fully answer your question, and the reason why is when we go to now run this schedule, we'll take the name of every single course and we'll start putting magnet tiles up on the board. And when we start doing that, then we'll load it into the computer system. If a child has signed up for both, will it allow them to based on their required courses? And when those required courses happen, that's what will determine whether or not they can take those. And those requireds usually drive whether or not they can get both of the electives they want. So potentially, so I'd just say a maybe to your answer.
When you say that we're up 21 students predicted, is that open enrolled students? Or-
It could be a mixture of both.
Okay.
I guess the 21 is the enrollment number that Forecast 5 gave us as the prediction for our incoming 9th through 12th grade students. But it could be a mixture of both.
Okay.
for the CNA and EMT, what grades are those open to?
11th and 12th grade for CNA and EMT.
Are we getting to the point where we might be able to build a house?
Construction?
Yeah.
Great question. I think ultimately the plan would be if we can find a .8 industrial tech teacher, which finding any industrial tech teacher is extremely hard to do. There aren't a lot of them out there. But if you can find yourself a .8, the hope is that the following year, do you have enough kids in those same classes to run it again, right? So you have this balance of, we've hired a person, let's try and hold them and keep them and continue to build momentum and build a good, strong department so that you can bring back your construction class, which is what we used to have. So I think it's the right beginning, and it's a really good time. We've got a lot of good momentum and a lot of information from the students is that those are great classes to be in. There's been some changes made in the shop, in both the metals and the wood shop, to make them more efficient workflow areas. The kids have really responded well to that. Having Fridays available to come in and get a lot of work done in those shops has really made a difference. And when you have that happen, kids tell kids, and then their votes basically carry what programs you can continue to run. Yeah.
To answer your question, Herbie, when they still had the construction class, they did build a house for me.
Oh.
But it was for my pigs, so it wasn't very big.
Hey, somebody got a house.
Yeah.
I see Jessica is here. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just here to help answer any questions related to CTEC or the registration guide and support. So if there's any other questions, but I'm only answered. It's been a good relationship with CTEC and Rochester Public Schools, so we have worked closely with Mr. McCrathrick and just making sure that we can ensure the scheduling works out as we're balancing Rochester Public Schools schedule and Byron Public Schools schedule, and actually some of this virtual online learning has made some more options available. And then we of course provide transportation for our students to and from CTEC, so just to want to eliminate the barriers there. And then looking at providing some support for our online firefighters. I don't know if you saw the KAL story last weekend. Highlighted our firefighters getting to actually participate in the live burn. So, and that's in conjunction with Riverland as well. so that's a concurrent class. And we're super excited to see PLTW make its way back. Have a great young teacher that is pursuing that. So Jake Finley is getting certified in that and pursuing that professional development this semester. And he is a chemical engineer, Bachelor's of Science, and then he went into teaching. So he's very excited to get into teaching engineering. So really perfect fit for Jake.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, thank you two for showing up. Thank you, Malia.
Thank you.
That-
Thank you.
Next one is John. Are you with us? You're kinda quiet.
That's better.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, my, for whatever reason, when my headphones are plugged in, it doesn't allow my microphone to work, so. In any event, I'm here tonight to do a presentation on an award that we created to recognize our students that are participating in activities and excelling in our areas of a profile of a graduate. And that's our Character and Citizenship Award. I don't know, do you have that on screen or?
Yep, I was gonna share with you.
Okay. So just giving you a little bit of a background and kind of what we talked about previously when I presented to the board in June. We know that 97% of all high school participants in activities generally have a terminal experience with it. That is, they're done with the activity once finished with high school. And we know in competitive activities, the goal of winning is, while it's important, it's not the purpose behind what educational-based activities programs are. And it's significantly more beyond that. And I think it ties nicely with developing our 6 C's through the profile of a graduate, which aligns with that purpose. And more specifically with board priority number 2, the recognition of our student sportsmanship and community service, or board priority 2, to inspire and develop character, share their talents, and doing so in recognizing as a goal of mine their sportsmanship ties character, and then their community service, which ties citizenship. So it was created in an effort to, again, recognize students participating in both activities and then excelling in those areas. It was developed in collaboration with the members of our Coaches Advisory Council and highlights, as I said, our 2 C's, both character and citizenship. The next 2 slides identify and define what we have as a district, what that means. Our character, self-directed learners equipped with grit, perseverance, empathy, and integrity. And then citizenship, being community-minded learners making a positive difference in our world. Eligibility that we developed for this award, we'll go through the next couple slides with that. The participants should be a junior or senior, and good academic standing, having a cumulative GPA of 2.5 or higher, not having any type of bylaw violations to the Minnesota State High School League, and be a current participant in MSHSL activities category 1 or 2. Category 2 are fine arts, and category 1 are athletics. They should be nominated by a staff member, coach, or teacher. We then take those nominations, we send them out to our Coaches Advisory Council for consideration. They then submit their top selections to the activities office, and we determine the recipient for that quarter. The nominees receive a phone call from me along with their parents. They receive an official letter of congratulations. And in a post-COVID world, or down the future where guidance would allow us to do so, we would like to present these awards at a school board meeting and then have our school board present them to the recipients. I would present the award recipients, and then school board members would be able there to congratulate their efforts in those areas. The award itself is both framed, it's a framed reverse V Chanel letter. The next slide shows what that looks like. It says Byron High School Activities, Character and Citizenship Award 2020-2021. Our goal is to recognize two students per quarter. We've recognized our first quarter recipients. Our second quarter recipients will be recognized in February. Third will be recognized in April and June, kind of the time frame that we're looking at this year. Students may receive this award only one time. A little bit about our quarter one recipients, Katie. Some comments from her nomination. She's an incredible human being, a genuine, caring, humble, hardworking, perseverant young lady. She's willing to help others, well respected by her teammates and coaches alike, volunteered numerous hours for a number of causes, including primarily, but not exclusively, volunteering at youth camps, helping at water stops, picking up trash for Adopt a Highway, and then participating in food drives. Our second recipient is Jacob Broughton. He was said that Jake always does the right things on and off the field of competition. Good student, good player, most importantly, a good person. He makes good choices consistently in life and demonstrates good character throughout. Jake is always willing to help and go above and beyond. He's shown that to the youth organizations, to be a good example for young kids. He loves to play and interact with the younger grade level kids and to invest in our community's youth. So the final slide just shows a picture. I did present those to them when we got back after the break, holding their award. They were both very grateful and thought the award was pretty cool. So I'll open it up to any questions, concerns, or comments that any of you have.
They're both great kids and well deserved for them. That was awesome.
Any other questions? Or, okay.
Just thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
It's good to
Thanks,
honor
John.
kids.
On that.
Thank you.
Our next one is Jen Dole, and I think Jeff is going to do that.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me on today. I'm representing Community Ed, but one of the programs, Project Kids, that I help run. We would like to share a little bit about what we do. I know that Jen isn't able to make it here today, but I don't really have speaking points to the other programs for this evening. Dr. Page, are you able to pull up the presentation that I prepared?
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now for you. And if you want to just give us some background before I play here.
Are you able to just pull up my slideshow first?
Oh, yep.
I believe, yeah, there's a presentation link here.
One second, Jeff. I'm just going to switch tabs here. I definitely have to get into the eye doctor this week. Just make note of that.
Well, I can just start talking a little bit. The slides really are short, and it's really about a highlight video that we put together to really showcase what we do at Project Kids. But just as a sample of things that we do, we're not just your average daycare, I guess. We're not just sitting in front of a TV or just doing the same old thing every day. We like to mix it up and do lots of different things. I won't read through all those, but that's a sample of what we do. are tied into profile of a graduate. We believe the things that we do here tie in very well to all 6 Cs. And that leads us to where we're able to help with the distance learning and the flex learning, if we have that snow day type thing, that we're here to support the students in their academics as well. We're not going to go through every one of their homework assignments or things like that, but we're definitely there to support those 2 programs when needed. And I'll just kind of sign off for myself here and rely on some of our kids and our staff and our parents that are going to speak a little bit more in our video here. I apologize for the length of it. There was too much stuff to cut out. It's about 6 minutes long. Is it a little bit late? Okay.
Everybody's so kind, and I like that the staff are always nice, and I like the crafts that we get. I learned about friendship.
Yeah, that's a good thing to learn about, huh?
Yeah. And then the other thing I learned is helping our friends, and the other thing I learned is having fun.
Ooh, I like all of those. Cool things? What are some of those cool things?
I get to do crafts. I make the turkey.
Ooh, yeah, we made a turkey.
Exposing.
What do you like to do out there?
I like to see all the animals and see what kind of things they would do. Going down the big water slide. Veggie sauce. So I got like best at PK's granola bar.
You don't know? You're always asking for a snack though, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Over like for my last 8 years that I worked at Project Kids, the biggest thing is just overall experience, building those positive, meaningful relationships with students. I mean, as an educator, that is your foundation of everything. You know, the better that you understand your students and the better relations you have with them, the better you're able to teach them.
Can you recall some field trips over the years that you've really enjoyed?
I would say the 2 biggest field trips that I can remember would be the Minnesota Children's Museum and also the Minnesota Science Museum. Those are field trips that are not only fun and engaging for staff and students, but they're ones that students are able to go and actually, you know, engage in meaningful activities where they're learning, you know, all sorts of new things.
So originally at the beginning when I joined Project Kids, I was going to go into the medical field, but working with the preschoolers and the first graders over the summer, it really changed my point of view on what I want to do in my future. So now I'm going into early childhood year. And I'm really glad that I came to that because I know that that's what I want to do in my future.
Tell me about your PK experience.
Well, to summarize the PK experience from a family that's new to Byron, in the middle of a pandemic, and that needs care every day, I would say that it's been pretty incredible. From our first day, you could see the hard work and care the staff put into the program and the compassion they have for every student. They're constantly amazed at the variety of activities they do daily. PK is so much more than childcare for us. It is a place our kids feel safe, have fun, and are challenged to keep learning. We are so thankful to have such a great program like PK with all of the added benefits it brings.
Hello, I'm Candy Mills, and my husband Barry and I have 3 boys. So we have been a part of Project Kids since 2013. The value of PK is priceless. The staff are flexible with drop off and pick up. Their communication is great. They help the kids with their homework, offer different activities and fitness opportunities. Most importantly, you can find all 6 C's of the profile of a graduate at PK. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the staff at PK is our village, and I don't know what we'd do without them around. Thank you, PK staff.
What your favorite part of your job is?
Being with the kids and love everyone with them.
All right, Jeff, any last comments?
I hope it played all right at the decks there, because I couldn't really hear very well on my end or see the video, but that's really it. That's in a nutshell of some of the things that we do. And again, I thank you for inviting Project Kids to share a little bit tonight.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Amanda, is there
Yeah, any questions for Jeff?
any question for Jeff?
Great job.
Yeah. Give me a hand back on
A little later.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is Dr. Page, your report.
Yes, he's gonna window share here. All right, good evening, board. Just a couple highlights to get through in the report here. One, we have our community leaders meeting. That'll be next week. If you recall, earlier Dr. Locus was with us. He's working with our community leaders now. So we have a cross-sectional group of chamber, city council, faith community, teachers, parents that have been working throughout the summer around our work around equity. And we've been meeting periodically throughout the calendar year. This is our next meeting on Monday, where we are back with Dr. Locus, and we have some homework that we're going through, some articles that we've reviewed, and the process and purpose of this is just to engage in our community in partnership around our equity work. So we'll be back on Monday for that. COVID-19, we just shared our recent data here. As you can see, we have some links. People have been following along, they can keep track of where we are at with COVID. One of the new things that we've added on our report this week is the state has developed a vaccine dashboard where you're able to see around the state where the vaccines are occurring. Also this week, yesterday, if you recall, we were notified from the Department of Ed that we do have some vaccines that are available now for our staff. So that's the first part of our process of getting our educators vaccinated, and we look forward to those continuing and also at a higher level. This is the first round with this, so we're working to get those individuals identified, and we'll wait for more dosages to come from the state. The other part here in the report, I'm going to skip around here a little bit. We've got our food truck trademark that came back from the United States Patent Office for our food truck, so we've got that identified. We had our first insurance committee meeting in January. This is a bid year for our insurance, so we will be walking through the HITA process for that. The Office of Civil Rights has released their annual report from the U.S. Department of Education. So you can see the review of the data there. Just want to acknowledge then too our STEM Forward STEM Community Champions Award. We shared this out on social media last week with our instructional coaches, and our tech department were recognized by the Southeast Service Co-op for their STEM Community Champion Award, and they'll be having the presentation here in tomorrow, January 20th, at SSC. So we are reminding everyone too around political activity in the district that we're aligning with our school board policy as we walk through the events across the country last week, and also with an inauguration tomorrow, just as a reminder. For the board, our Paraprofessional Recognition Week is coming up, January 25th and 29th. So we want to recognize them and thank them for all of their work that they do in our district. We couldn't do it without them. Part of the district operation plan and my goals is our Superintendent Strategic Advisory Council. This is new this year. It's a group of citizens across stakeholder groups that are meeting with me to provide input on our district operation plan. So we have had our first meeting here, and we'll be back here in February just to talk through some of the things that we're working on in the district, and they can provide some input that we'll bring back to the board for that. Our ZED Creative Writing Contest, we have recognized our exemplary poetry writer at the middle school, and also several students that were honorable mentions as well, and we have them listed here. The booklet for this should be out here, they said at the end of January, so hopefully we'll have that. Just to jump back into my report here is on our Finance and Facilities Committee. We had our last meeting on January 14th. We walked through an update from the city. Todd presented financials, and then bulk of our conversation was around potential referendum for the district and community. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. Paul Youngquist is here as well, if there's any questions for that. Harvey, Craig, and Sharon were part of that meeting as well. One of the things that we discussed at the meeting was to, shape that proposal a little bit more. That was a removal of the bus garage in question one, which reduced the overall project by $1 million. And then we did have a conversation on timing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harvey and Greg, we talked around keeping the potential May 11th. And Paul, I think you can speak to this as well. This was with the construction timelines, the bidding process, and the availability to sell those bonds to begin that. The other part of the conversation was to look at debt structure. So in the past, the district has used a wraparound debt structure on previous bonds. We've also asked Ellers to look at a level payment. So we provided that information for the committee as well. You do have in front of you, and they were hot off the presses yesterday, that conversation with the Finance and Facilities Committee as we ended that meeting, reduced the overall project by $1 million because the bus garage was taken off there. And so we did talk with Ellers around writing or developing new draft tax impact schedules with that $1 million off. So this is what that looks like right now. So we have a chance to see how that debt is structured and what the potential impact would be on the property values. So that's a lot to start with. I just want to stop there and maybe turn over to Craig or Harvey or other board members for questions on kind of where we are at in this process and things that we need to flush out more. I would say, before I turn my microphone off, Jeff Seeley will be with us again on February 1st. See if there's anything that changes from tonight that he can provide information on for the board. So,
before we go on to that, Jessica, would you please give those STEM people our congratulations and everything else, because
Yep.
that's a very highly type, and so please do that for us.
Yeah, they kept us going.
Yeah. Then going back now, finance, Craig, do you have anything or questions?
I think, you know, the really good thing at the beginning of the meeting that we had for finance and facilities is that Paul did a very nice job going back through the project list and went into some pretty good detail and answered some detailed questions that some people had as far as various things that would or would not be part of the project. Some things as far as regulatory things with some things we can do as far as storm sheltering, and maybe rather than add on separately for that, make our new structures so that they are actually meet the code requirements for the storm sheltering, so we don't have to like add space, we can use the space that we're building to actually meet those requirements. So hopefully some good things, you know, out of that, where we can kind of envelop all that together in the project and help things along. But I think Paul did a great job there of explaining a lot of detail. There were some pretty good detailed questions that people had, and it was nice to get a lot of those things answered and explained through that process. And then, as Joey mentioned, we did spend a lot of time discussing the timing of, you know, when to come as far as a vote to the community, and discussed pretty much all our upcoming options that we had from May to August to November. And again, Paul was very, very handy there for us to kind of explain the things how that would shift construction schedules, shift the bidding process, things that could potentially add extra costs if we go for a vote then and have to bid at certain times. Timing of bids was very important also, because if you get at the wrong time of the year, a lot of the construction firms have already bid out their work units for the year, so you don't have a lot of people available to make bids on things, so you don't always get the best round of bids out of that, so to speak. And so there was a lot of very important things that came into play as far as when is the best timing to go out for that. And I think we had that discussion the last go around before we went out with this too, and I think that's why we settled on May also, because it just, for us especially with having to deal with winter construction and things like that, it's much better to have a decision made, if the support is there, have the decision made in May. You know, that bid process goes out much smoother. It allows for timing of construction to get started, so we can at least get the outside buttoned up and do the inside work through the winter, and get buildings opened as we expect on time, and get them into use, rather than, you know, that odd time where you might have a December finish and try to occupy a building mid-year is very disruptive to everybody in the whole district to do something like that, even if it doesn't involve all buildings. It seems to in some ways. So, so a lot of those things we had some very good discussions on, and kind of came back and settling with where we ended up.
You said you took the bus garage off.
Yeah.
Do we have any plans for how we're going to maybe incorporate the need for that at some point, for their needs out there?
I think we do. I don't know as if we can.
No, that's okay. I was just
discuss
wondering.
yet what those are, but
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, it's something that in the last referendum too that we were looking at is, you know, the district has quite an investment of vehicles out there, so I think there's definitely interest in getting those things covered with that, and that was part of the last referendum, to look at some land to expand out there. So that could be something that the district could look at as a different location perhaps to do the expansion that we would need. And then also that would probably be a longer term solution. We're looking at a 20, 30-year solution with our vehicles. So
It wasn't taken off for a lack of current need. It was taken off for a probably better future prospect than it would be current.
I think the acreage at the bus barn right now is about 5 acres, and I think Paul stated that a good 20 acres would be suffice for, if you're looking 30 years down the road, the number of buses that you might need, or the location, that kind of stuff. So questions, Paul or Matt or anybody that might have?
Was there any, much discussion on the wrapped versus the level?
We did look at both structures that were there. I think some of the concerns that come out of, even though on the level bond payment structure, we do pay less interest in the end, undoubtedly. I mean, there's no argument there. One thing that we have to consider when we're asking the community to invest in the school district is that we also do have quite a few people on a fixed income, and bouncing things up and down with the level bond payment schedules, you're gonna get that high spike when a bond issue comes on versus this where it stays the same. It's a little bit better on a fixed income population to handle that wrap structure than it is. Yes, it does cost the district more interest in the end, but again, as we look at the potential growth that continues to happen in this district and does continue to happen in this district, that longer term with the increased interest spreads over a much broader population. So even today's per capita interest expense versus future per capita interest expense is spread a little bit wider. So you're not bearing that burden of that wrap schedule just on today's population either. It does help spread it into the future and future growth.
Yeah, I understand that, but in the future, there'll be new referendums coming up. And if I was looking at the people 10 years from now, I wouldn't want to have an old bond come up and the rate that we're paying for it quadruple at the time that we need a new bond to build something else. And that's what this plan calls for with the wrap schedule is we pay, what, $800,000–900,000 a year for 10 years. Excuse me. And then in the 10th year, when another bond goes away, this one goes up by a factor of 4, about. And with regards to the interest, it's not just a little bit of extra interest we're paying. It's roughly 45% more interest. $4 million for this one referendum overall is a lot of money. That's like $200,000 a year. And we have other referendums that we have that we're paying. So that's even more that we're paying. So overall, the taxpayers are paying about 13% more for a wrap schedule. And I just don't think we're making the best use of our taxpayers' dollars, having them pay interest only on loans. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The primary school is a perfect example. $25 million, we're paying only interest on it right now. So, it built 2014, it's 2021, 7 years, we still owe $25 million. And that's just not fiscally sound. We're paying a huge amount of interest on that. And I just think, financially speaking, if we can cut 13% from somebody's payments, I think it would be a really good deal. Granted, it's kind of a bump, but people vote for it. If they vote for a bump, they get a bump.
It's a bump.
Yeah, yeah. And telling them it's a little bump, telling them it's a little bump now is a little deceptive because in the future it's going to be a big bump. And so I just think it's a lot simpler to say you vote for this, you pay for this. You don't depend on people down the road paying for it. You know exactly what you're voting for. You know exactly what you're going to get. And if we think it's going to be too much, too expensive, then perhaps it's too big a bond, too big of a referendum. And so actually I would like to entertain, sorry, my glasses are foggy. I'd like to entertain the idea of multiple questions for the referendum. I think the buildings should be question 1, and then perhaps a second question or even a third question for the athletic field and auditorium. And that way the voters are in complete control of you know, what we get. I know that the original, many years ago for the high school, that's how it was proposed, building, athletics, auditorium, and of course they all three failed, but, the building, I think, was close. And so, I just feel like we give the voters more control with their tax dollars, if we give them more questions.
The thing that I look at is, and, you know, wrapping the level, you know, that's great. But the thing that the taxpayers are gonna look at is that last page there with the schedule. And if I have a $250,000 home for the level, I'm gonna be paying $200. If I go over the wrap, and for my $250,000 home, I'm gonna be paying $85. And maybe that's not the best way to look at it. But
Yeah, I would say it's not, but.
That's not the best way to look at it, I can guarantee that.
But that's the way the taxpayers
are gonna look at it.
They aren't
Yep.
gonna go into, unfortunately, you know.
Because we can, I
even if
mean,
we-
Yes,
people
but
didn't
we're not
people
giving
didn't
them.
understand.
Oh, sorry.
People didn't understand the 42% savings that they could have had, what do they call that?
Net equalization.
Debt service in that, and that would have saved them 42% out of the bond referendum. And to try to explain the wrap and the level to some people, they're just gonna be looking at what they're gonna pay for their taxes. And I understand, you know, where you're coming from and that kind of stuff, but I'm also looking at people that go 285, I don't know.
But we're not giving them a choice between one or the other.
Well,
We're gonna say, this is how we wanna finance this, because this is.
No, but that's the thing we have to look at, is what is the best
What
way
are the
to keep
people
this
gonna
out
vote for?
successfully for the district.
Yep. But it's not fair to look at the 80 versus 200, because that's only the increase in their taxes. So percentage-wise, you know, it's a different story. And if you look at the chart, you look at the charts and the red and the blue, for the level payment in the early years, it looks like maybe a 15% bump, 20%. That's not all that much, and that's for the full $30 million. So I think looking at just the increase is a little bit misleading. You know, how much are your taxes gonna go up? X percent. And X percent isn't really all that much in either case.
I think if we were looking at interest rates that were gonna be at 5, 6, 7, 8%, I mean, couldn't argue with you, but when we're talking about 2.5, 2.6, well, like you say, it's not as efficient as our dollars could be used. I have a difficult time looking somebody in the face and telling them, whether you're a farmer and saying, okay, your taxes are gonna go up $1.15, or if we do a level payment, it's gonna be $2.73 an acre if you got a guy that's farming, you know, 5, 6, 7,000 acres of his own land. And it doesn't make any difference whether he owns it or doesn't own it, because if he's renting the land, the landowner is probably gonna be saying, hey, look, I've got additional expenses, I'm gonna be passing that along to you, the guy that's renting it.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody that's on Social Security and a fixed income, like was mentioned. Like I say, I understand your argument, it's not the most efficient use of dollars, but it allows people to manage more effectively for their payments. And it does allow us to pay that off right now currently with relatively cheap bond rates. And when we're repaying those dollars in the future, when you take a look at inflation, we're paying them off with cheaper dollars down the road than we are today. They don't have as much buying power as a general rule down the road as what they've got today.
I think we keep forgetting the fact that more referendums will be coming. And if you add them all together, if you use a level payment scheme, it's cheaper, it's 13% cheaper. Or across the board, I don't see how we can't make that a simple story.
Well, if you think you can explain it to the taxpayers and get it through crystal clear with all of them so that they're all, you know, A-okay and understand it, I get that. We have a difficult time enough as it is getting some of the other things through with the things that we've tried to do in the past, let alone trying to explain to everybody the difference between level and wrapped bonds.
Right. The thing is, the voters of Byron have been very good at voting for our referendums. And when they see something that is the correct thing to do, correct thing to vote for, they vote for it. They're really good at that. The price, the cost, is certainly something they look at. But I think it's the project itself that's the very most important thing that they look at. If we convince people that we need building, they will vote for it. I mean, they know, they support our kids. Other things are harder to convince them. That's why I think we need multiple questions. And I think we need to finance it as best we can. I mean, if you think about it, a front-loaded schedule would be the best, because you make a big payment at first a couple of times and then it goes down and you save a ton of interest. I'm not proposing we do that. So actually a level payment scheme is kind of the middle of the road.
I think there's no question about our community wanting to support the kids and what needs to be done, but let's be honest, our taxes are high, and then asking them to pay more is a hard pill for some people to swallow.
But it's gonna have to be paid sooner or later. It's not like they're getting anything for free.
But they could vote no and say, I'm not
Well,
gonna
sure,
pass
yeah.
that because I can't afford it. And that's the consensus I've heard, is it's not about wanting the things done, it's about the money, and they're looking at these figures. And they'll say, well, gosh, you know, like Matt said, and you're correct too, I mean, you have the knowledge behind that, and I see exactly where you're coming from, but I think the taxpayers are just gonna look at these and they're gonna say, $200 a year, that's a lot for some people.
Well, absolutely.
And, you know, I don't know what the best option is, I guess, for everyone.
I don't know, if I was in a business and I told my boss I could save him 13% on something, I'd get a huge raise. You know, 13% is huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can explain it.
Does Paul have anything to add, or Paul, do you have anything to add or want to say to us?
I'm not your financial consultant, so.
Anything about the project?
I think, you know, Craig summed it up pretty well. Certainly, I think.
Can you come up to the mic?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
You just take the seat right in.
Thank you. If there's any concern about schedule, interest rates are low now. Construction costs are really aggressive right now. So keep pushing, and you certainly have been working on this long enough that you know, some districts we work with, all of a sudden it's a big surprise to the community. Well, this won't be. And in talking to a couple different CMs today, they haven't noticed any issue with regard to COVID, with regard to voter turnout or voter attitude. So, other than that, I mean, we talked about the specific projects. We've had a lot of discussion with Knudsen Construction about how we would package all this work. And there would be a project at the high school, and it would be in the question number one, at least at the moment. It's all the classroom edition, and if the auditorium should pass, that would be a part of that package. And there'd be a package for this building, and that would include all the classroom things and electrical, mechanical, kitchen, all those things. And there'd be a package for the improvements to the kitchens at one package for intermediate and middle school, improvements to kitchen. And then then the athletic package would be, and each of them would have their own schedule, and their own team of architects and engineers, meeting with your people to get the details right and get it drawn up as fast as we can and bid out. And the bidding industry right now, the labor, people are looking for work, but the materials, you know, I think some of the factories haven't been at full peak, so the steel is a little longer out and different things, so kind of balances out. But the overall bottom line is that we certainly would, if we bid things today, we'd be under our bids, under our budgets. And we hope it kind of stays that way for all of 21.
Paul, I know you've shared your experience with us in the past, and districts you've been involved with that have had multiple question referendums out there. Can you kind of allude to some of the success or lack of success you've seen on having multiple questions? You know, one question versus two versus even three questions on a referendum and projects you've dealt with?
Yeah, the biggest key is you just don't want to confuse people. Make it simple. And but I happen to think that you know, we can talk about whether it should be three or whatever, but I happen to, it seems like the way you have it set up with one question of the things that are really obvious that you need. I mean, maybe there can be discussion about the athletic facilities, but when you get teams that refuse to come and play at your home site, it's almost like you don't have a facility right now. But in the project, we have about $1 million set aside to fix that up so it's great for non-varsity use. And so I think the idea of having the athletic facilities in the main question is right. Because the main question is, these are the things we really need if we're going to just continue to have thousands of kids have a good learning experience at their district. The auditorium, every time we've done an auditorium, it's the most used facility in the district. I get the newspaper from Buffalo, Minnesota, and I did an auditorium for them back in '96, and 950 seats, and man, at least every other week, the front picture is something going on in the auditorium, whether it's an awards program or it's a class play or band and choir. So it's pretty valid for you to be talking to the community about putting an auditorium at the high school, and that of course frees up the auditorium at the middle school. And everybody knows that there's many groups that want to use an auditorium, and you just hardly can schedule an auditorium for all the different things. And band wants to be in there for about 5 days and practicing and get used to the sound in the room. So it's not like when you schedule something, it's not just for Thursday nights, it's for a week. So it makes a lot of sense to even ask for an auditorium, but it makes some sense to say, you know, we do have an auditorium, but we're just trying to expand the opportunities for kids and have it at. And of course, your school is so perfect the way we can set it right next to band and choir and right by the front door, and it just be a real flagship for you. So I'm pretty excited about the way the group has composed the referendum. It's things that you really need, and then of course this building, 10 years ago there was thought, well, you know, should we continue to use it? But all of a sudden, you've done quite a few nice upgrades to it, and now with pretty minimum dollars, I mean, $6 million is a lot of money, but compared to trying to buy this many square feet that are ready to go for the next 40 years, it's a bargain. And it's just what you're using the building for sure seems neat. So I'm pretty happy to be a part of a project or a proposal that really is in keeping with what you need. And then I guess one more thing I thought of, when I took a look at Hazel Reinhardt's latest projections for 10 years out, it just really super emphasized that you need square feet at the high school. and that's what, you know, big majority of this emphasis is here, so.
Can I ask you a question about something you said? For the football field, you said the current football field could be fixed up, but for non-varsity, what's the difference there?
Sure. The plans to fix up all the facilities at the middle school is to take care of some drainage issues, take care of some fencing things, and take care of the surface on the track. It's not at all to expand the seating, which is one of the things that whenever you have a large game, everyone's standing around because there's, well, I'll say 33% of the people that show up don't have a seat.
As well as parking.
Okay.
So the field
Yeah.
itself is
Well,
okay to play on?
It's okay to
Or no?
play on.
No, I mean after the fixing it up.
Yeah, it's okay to play on. It's it's a grass field, which means that you like to have a field in really neat shape for Friday night. And if JV plays on it Thursday night and it's a rainy evening, it's just wrecked for Friday night. And whereas the new field is going to be synthetic turf, it actually has about 40 inches. We've cut 40 inches and bring in granular and sand and put in a membrane and then some more granular and then the carpet itself. And the carpet is filled with little rubber granules. And at the bottom of the 40 inches is an extensive drain tile system that takes the water away. It can be raining an inch an hour, literally, and you just play it. And you aren't slopping through anything. JV can play on it Thursday night. We could have soccer on it Thursday afternoon. We could have something. You can have Phi Ed on it all day Friday, and you just aren't going to affect what happens on Friday night. So if we put, well, we would be improving the drainage and different things at the middle school, but it still would be a situation where that field would have to be really baby. Be very, very careful about how you use it, if you want it to be nice for Friday night.
Okay, right. So if the current field is in such poor shape, does fixing it up even make sense? If if JV and varsity are gonna use a new field, why would we update the old one?
Because you have twice as many kids in your district. You have twice as many kids in your district when, compared to when you built the new high school. So by having two athletic facility areas, you open up the opportunity for, all those kids that you have now, and I think we all hope that you have about a 60% participation rate in extracurricular activities. I don't know what the number.
So it's a middle school.
So
middle school.
It would be a middle
Right.
school
Okay.
site, and all of a sudden, all those middle school kids have a place to play because they aren't, shushed off the field and say, "Oh man, you can't play here tonight because we got a big game coming." And they'll use it for Phi Ed. They'll use it for all of their middle school, 8th grade football, 7th grade football, and 8th grade soccer. And when I looked at you literally have about twice as many students participating in things as when you built the high school. So with many similar scenarios. We've done new high schools like in St. Michael and Buffalo and other places where we didn't build the athletic field right away, but after the growth came, then we have done new synthetic fields at the new high school. And synthetic fields, one of the activity director at the Cindy High School in the road, he did a nice spreadsheet of how often they could use the old grass field, and it was like 7 times a month because they had to protect it. Otherwise it gets wrecked and it's just a mud, it's a mess. but they have their varsity soccer and their varsity football. And that's what they use the grass field, but now that we have the new synthetic at Simile, I think it was about 22 times a week.
Oh, wow.
Because it was, I remember that number, because they used it for some of the 5 classes and then practiced every night at 3, and then a game almost every night for something. And whether it be 9th grade or JV or varsity soccer, football, it's just, I mean, I'd like to have a piece of the profits at the concession stand. I mean, it's a super busy place.
That and the auditorium. Oh wait, we don't charge.
Yeah, but, so I think it's, having, and I know you were just talking about separating things out, and it's what we want to do, what you think, but the question was, if we want to keep it simple so that people understand, these are the things we really need, you know?
Yep.
And these are things that would really improve opportunities for kids, but if we had to live without it, I guess we could, you know, and that's kind of what you've got going here.
Okay. This is the first time I've heard so much detail about the fields. I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I have spoken to a lot of people who say, we don't need a football field, oh, come on, that's too expensive, blah, blah, blah. And when you put it like how you put it, it's much more convincing, and so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah, part of the, when people look at a number, $9 million, that's, there's a lot there though, because it's
not a football field,
it's
it's an athletic facility.
Well, yeah, it's a baseball field there and a softball, but it's
Track.
also a 9-lane track. And, we've done a lot of 8-lane tracks, and 9-lane track, I ran track, can't brag about it. But, actually, the guys that won the race were already putting their sweatpants on when I crossed the finish line. But anyways, the 9-lane track, if you're trying to run a meet, it's really magic. That, you can have like 3 teams, you can have 3 kids in each team on the same event, rather than it's just something about 9 teams always work out really well for how they put together meets. So you have 9-lane track, all-weather track, brand new, beautiful, should last for 10 years without blinking, but more than that even. Again,
With blinking?
Yeah, again, the subs, well, probably recoating,
yeah,
and then restriping and lettering. But, and then you have, all kinds of, bleachers in that price tag, and then, press box and lighting. And then there's a building for concessions and tickets and toilets.
Permanent toilets.
Permanent toilets.
Good smelling? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's nice, and I mean, people, other districts will, well, they might be envious actually, but they'll just feel like they're being properly treated in today's world, and, but so the 9 million is a lot of things, the building, the lighting, the track, the, synthetic turf, all the bleachers, the baseball, the softball, and the purchase of 20 acres that we need. And the 20 acres, that figure was for the athletics. I haven't actually laid out a transportation to see exactly how many acres you need for transportation, so that we can work on.
Sorry. Well, so we don't have the acreage right now for the football field and athletics, is that what you just said?
Right, yeah,
Cool.
and so we need to pick up some acreage on the south side of a high school or someplace.
Okay.
But the dollars to purchase is in prices.
Okay.
Dr. Page, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not mistaken, the track as it currently sits is desperately in need of resurfacing. And we can't resurface the track without basically having equipment tear up the football field, correct? And if I'm not mistaken, I think at one point in time, there was, some type of an assessment that went on out there where we had sprinkler heads that were suspect that people could potentially be injuring themselves because of settling, and sprinkler heads were sticking up. So we've got some issues out there that need to be addressed that haven't been, you know, as bright as the yellow flag during a football game or a soccer meet where, hey, look, you know, this is what's going on. There are some issues out there that people need to hear the backstory on a little bit too. You know, if they're not gonna let us run out there, then the track basically is worthless. You get a track that you can't run on, and you can't fix the track without wrecking the field, because they're gonna have the equipment out there to do the resurfacing that'll be driving across the field and wrecking parts of it when they're getting it done. And then we need to do something to address the drainage in the field that's there, and drainage both ways for making it drier, but also fix the irrigation and stuff. So there's other things that need to go on there in order to make that as suitable. And then when you take a look at us now hosting a bigger group of people, because we're no longer the small school that we used to be, like I say, we've got no permanent toilets there. The concession stands, I mean, you stand in line for probably a half, if you're gonna, unless you're gonna bring something yourself or start out that way. Yeah.
I always budge.
So, well, like I say, when it's all said and done, we need to, if we're gonna step up to that next level of hosting, you know, schools that we're gonna be required to host, whether it's the Rochester schools or Mankato or Owatonna or whatever, we just don't have the facilities to be a good host. And I think when it's all said and done, if we're gonna have parking, we're gonna have to go back and say, hey, look, we're gonna tailgate over at the high school, let the guests come over and stay over at, you know, Mitchell Field there, and then have everybody tailgate and have burgers and whatever, and bus our fans over if you're gonna try to accommodate them, if not, we're gonna do something different. Because there's just not room to park. And then you take a look at all the people on the street who, you know, their evening is pretty much shot because you can't get in or out of their house at all because of all the cars that are parked along the street. So we need to do something to address it in some way, shape, or form.
The thing the biggest thing about that field was put in 54 years ago now, to be used one Friday night every other week for a football game. We are now easily, and Malia I'm sure will agree with me, can see 6 to 8 competitions in a week on that field now throughout the fall. That's putting a heavy burden on that field that just was not designed for that. What happens with that is that field starts to get tore up. We get a couple of rainy games from soccer or from football, either one, and that field starts to get tore up, and it takes away that competition advantage that our kids should have. They don't get a fair competitive advantage out there on that field. That's something that they should be allowed that experience. When they're participating in extracurriculars, they should have the best experience they can. And you know, this is a great opportunity for us, again, to reinvest in our community for something that we've gotten 54 years of very good use. We've gotten more than our bang for our buck out of our investment in that field. Okay. And it's really time to do something that can, you know, give our kids, you know, that great experience that really they deserve and should have. And it's a good time to put it in there. And the one other thing, you know, as far as, you know, you said this is the first time you heard details on the athletic facilities out there. That's great. And that, again, comes with educating our public on what's out there for our bond issue. And the one thing that I'd really like to ask everyone on the board is to stop referring to that piece of the bond issue as the football field, because it is far more than the football field. It is baseball, it's softball, it's concessions and bathroom facilities and maintenance things. It's the track, and it is football, yes, but it's lighting, parking, everything that goes into having an outdoor athletic facility out there. It's going to host boys and girls track, JV and varsity football, JV and varsity soccer. It opens up things for future club sports, such as lacrosse, which there's gaining more and more popularity. I know there's kids from Byron that go play on clubs teams in Rochester. This is something with a turf field out there, allow great opportunity for things like that. So there's so much more to it, and we really need to stop referring to it as the football field.
I apologize if I did. I try to use athletic facilities.
Well, I think you guys hit it on the head. We need to educate, because you know there's a certain demographic that's in the thick of it, where their kids are playing and they know how bad the facilities are. But then there's the young, you know, people with younger kids, or the people that their kids are gone. Right, so they don't see the disarray that really is our athletic department out there. I mean, it's in dire need of
You know,
some
just
major
as
repair.
Joe Q Public last year, I've probably learned 5 times as much right here in the last
Right.
10 minutes as I did, you know, all of last year trying to find information on it, so.
Right.
You asked the
So
right question though, too.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
really what we have to consider when we're putting it out there, is what are
Yep.
those questions, and putting it out. You asked it, he gave us a really good answer.
Yeah,
I mean, I
so-
know that facility so well, I ran on when the track was cinders. It wasn't even paved, it was cinders, spikes that long.
Yeah, I remember.
And you ran barefoot.
You probably won the races, so.
On more than one
I went to
occasion.
state.
Even on cinder.
Any other, Dr. Page? I was just gonna say, any other discussion or whatever, I was gonna say that, the first February, we have, Jeff coming down, so if we have any questions about the finances and that kind of stuff, that'll be a good time to get the questions together for him to talk to us about the different financing terms and that kind of stuff, and that's February 1st.
Yeah, February 1st, Jeff Seeley's gonna be here just to answer any other questions, but I also would put out there too is, if we're continuing to look at May, for the points that Craig, that you brought up, and we discussed at the finance and facilities, and you walked through the, you know, the bidding calendar and construction calendar, I just wanna point out to the board that, this becomes a really critical time on what our timelines are. There's really specific event dates that we need to pay attention to. So if the board is looking at a May 11 referendum, that election has to be called by the 26th of February. That's number one. Number two is the review and comments required. Part of that process needs at least 60 days review from the Department of Education, which would put us around February 19. So if there's, my question to the board tonight would be, what information would you like to have for February 1st? Not that the election would be called then, but just so we can have another robust conversation and get ready for that, which would probably be a special board session to call, if we are gonna call for the election. So what could I prepare for you for the 1st?
Does everybody have I think everybody should have, but the breakdown of the cost of each of these items type of deal?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all, would be another thing maybe to look at.
I guess one question that I would have, that I wanna make sure that the taxpayers would know, if you take a look at the facilities that we're looking to build, based on our best guess estimates, how long does that make our facilities good for on what we're upgrading? Based on, like I say, we know we're gonna be wrong, but I mean, based on the best guess estimates for our population growth and the rest of it, how long does that make our facilities good for? Not the athletic complex, but I'm just saying the other things that we're looking to do for infrastructure, how long do we anticipate it would be before we have to make additional changes?
Well, based on Hazel Reinhardt's projected enrollment, the high school should be good for 10 years. The other 3 buildings, I think in 5, 6, 7 years, you're gonna start to think about something, and but maybe you'll squeeze through till 10 years, you know, on that. But, Mike, right?
Yes.
Yeah, when he said 10 years, I think in 10 years, you're gonna be crowded again. Is that answering the question that you asked?
All I'm looking for is honesty when it's all said and done.
Okay.
I mean, and Craig and I've had this conversation before, either together or separately, but seems like about every 10 years we're doing something. But I just want the taxpayers to know when it's all said and done, you know, are we doing this thing big enough? You know, when it's all said and done, we may say, hey, look, this is too much money, but I mean, my question is, okay, if we're gonna go back, I'm guessing that materials and labor and everything else is gonna go up. I don't imagine that interest rates will be any cheaper. But, you know, there's what you can plan for, and then there's the rest of it. It's like, okay, we can't just leave these facilities that we're not using, but I mean, do we have it right sized right now? And does the board feel comfortable that, you know, maybe a 5 to 7 year horizon is okay for some of the buildings, and we'll call 10 good enough at the high school? But, I mean,
Well, just to, reiterate some of the discussion that's occurred on the, finance and facility over the last several months. The primary building was designed to be added onto very, very easily, about 6 rooms, like overnight, sort of, okay?
Half done?
Yeah. We'll open house on Monday.
Oh.
But and it's a size project, you know, I don't wanna talk for Todd or Dr. Page, or anybody, but the size is just exactly the type of project that we've been doing on a lease levy type, funding, where, you wouldn't need to have, public vote. I mean, obviously you're the public and you have to vote on it, but, it is a project that if the primary starts to get really crowded, you could take care of it, in real quickly. The intermediate, is the same, that one's a little harder to add on to. The middle school, we've done sketches on how to add on to that one. I think the middle school, based on Hazel's numbers, might be the one that is the least, of a concern in terms of overcrowding, because there's a little bit of room over there. And I don't know if I speak for Richard, but they have such a perfect program in terms of how the class schedule goes, with the number of teachers and the number of students and the number that there's gonna be, this is the kind of thing Richard should talk about, but there's gonna be some willingness to have just a little larger classes before they break into a whole different setup. And that's, I'm just saying what he's told me. So there, I think 5, 6, 7 years, your people are gonna be, principals are gonna be talking to you about, wow, where do I put kids, except for at the high school. And whether you can stretch it out to 10 or you do some, other funding sources to solve some problems. Then there's this building. And, you know, with the south half of the building becoming available, there's opportunities. I don't know exactly what should go there, but you'll have some square feet there.
Kind of with regards to what you said, you know, is it big enough? We had a presentation by Sue Peterson from Survey Company, I forget the name of it.
School Perceptions.
School Perceptions, and she had what was it? A $40 million bond, had a 45% chance of passing. I think that was her numbers. And so if we get above 30, 32, 35, we run into that barrier that she identified. And she said that still holds true for this year. And so, gotta be really careful about making it too big. I don't, yeah, the 2 questions I think is.
She also mentioned in that too, though, of going to several questions, and your success rate of those extra questions drops off radically as you continue to spread out beyond, you know, 2, you know, 1 with the second question, higher probability of success. You go 3 questions, then a lot of times 2 or 3 could be either one. Can't say which one, but you lose your probability of passing one of the 2 or both. Go beyond that, then the probability really drops off that you're gonna pass any of them beyond question 1. So.
Sure, that's why the 3rd and the 4th are fake ones. So, no, just kidding. No, but I think if they're all together, you run the risk as well. People don't like a project and they vote no for the whole thing, so it's a balancing act, I think.
I have seen it where that got confusing with 3 questions, and I've seen pins, you know, buttons on people in town that says no, no, no. So they're just.
I think we need to be careful of our verbiage, because even sitting here in a meeting tonight, if you're gonna say that question 3 is a fake one, someone may take that at face value and say, well, Mike Denny said it was fake. So, I mean, we need to be careful with our verbiage that we're saying in public. I mean, flat out. I mean, this is for the sake of our kids and the sake of our community, and it needs to be serious business. And we can't take a chance that people are gonna say, hey, look, you know, we've got question 3 as a throwaway. I mean, I've heard that as long as I've been on the board. The very first time that we did the one out there, when it was 3 questions, it got shot down, and there was multiple reasons. It was about 50-50 if it got shot down on question 1. It was 2-1 against the second question and 3-1 on the third. So, I mean, it goes back to what Craig was saying. Every time you go out there, someone's saying, well, that's a throwaway because they're asking for more than what they want.
Well, it's based on priority, right?
Yep.
Questions are based on
Human
priority.
nature.
But
Yep.
you don't,
We have our highest priority ones first.
you don't want to
Yep.
play games.
Oh,
No.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I apologize for that statement. I didn't mean
Sure.
to suggest that we're playing games.
And-
I want to be as transparent as the next guy, and for sure, so I apologize.
Just like I said, I don't want someone to take it out of context out in the public and say, well, Mike Denny said that was a throwaway. So,
Mike Denny did not mean that, so.
And the finance and facility equipment, finance and facility committee has done some serious work at trying to prioritize things, and they cut out $20 million worth, of things.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I would like to close this conversation. It was a very good conversation. I think we got a lot of things talked about and that. Like I said, February 1st, we'll have Jeff here, so we'll have some questions that you might have for the finance.
And can I just circle back in, we want breakdown on costs for the projects, tax impact schedule, which you have tonight, will be on there. Is there anything else that people are interested, or?
Can you just maybe resend everybody that timeline of?
Construction, it's construction timeline?
Construction timeline would also be nice, but then like, May, August, November, and like then the reviewing comments.
Oh, you mean the referendum timeline?
Yeah.
Yep,
referendum.
yep, I have, yes.
I think it's just kind of always good to have, people can review it one more time before
Yep.
we have another discussion on it. It's kind
Yes,
of
I
have
will.
those dates in mind.
I have that ready to go, so that one's ready. So,
Dates and the steps.
yeah, breakdown of costs, tax impact schedule, construction timeline, referendum timeline. And then if there's anything else that you think before then, that, just send it to me so Jeff and I and Paul can get it prepared for you.
Great. Thank you, Paul,
Right
for
on.
coming.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, sir.
Thank Paul.
drive safe home.
Yeah.
Next item is 9.3, that's a Z update, and Sharon's not here. Joey or Matt, do you have any?
I didn't have anything that said.
I would say my update will be at 9.7.
Okay.
So
All right.
that'll be the resolution.
9.4 is Byron City. Matt, I think you.
Yep, I sent everybody out a summary, but I'll just kind of go through it again here real quick. Probably the biggest thing that was there on the front side was a new resolution for a tax abatement for Culligan. And it was just basically a reduction in the numbers of employees because of the COVID. They were concerned with some numbers that they may not be able to maintain as many employees for the tax abatement. So they massaged the numbers from 17 down to 10. And then the other thing then that was discussed was the resolution for the street improvement project, which was going to be on, get back here to Byron, First Avenue Northwest, 2nd Street Northwest. Talking about that, there was a map in there that was showing it, and basically the situation they've got there is they've got a history of some water main breaks, some aging sewer pipes and sanitary situations. So that was the big thing that they were discussing there and moving through on that. And then last but not least on there was the interchange. And Harvey and Joey and I talked about that a little bit more this morning. About what that was all about, and if anybody wants, I can send you the interchange information that was discussed. It's actually on the city webpage, and it's pretty comprehensive, but I guess the big thing that was there was that safety was the #1 priority for the city, not the cost of the project. And then the second thing in there that I felt I got was that they were looking for maximum access to service the businesses that we've got in the city. But there were some issues with the city, not the city, but the county and the state as far as what they were willing to fund and the close proximity of the interchanges. They wanted them at least 2 miles apart. So when it came down to it, it was looking like probably the best fits were gonna be for the County Road 3 and County Road 5, which coincidentally happens to be the one that would be the most economically least costs for the city, because the state and the county own so much of the other roads that they're responsible for, whether it's Highway 14 or County Road 3 and County Road 5. So they would bear more expense there when it was all said and done. And then, last but not least, something that's probably going to be influencing the district, which we've seen all along, there has been an increased level of interest by a number of developers to build, and Emmy probably is doing a party. We get more building, there'll be more real estate, which obviously is going to put more of a strain on the school district as well. But there's a number of entities that are looking to acquire land and develop here in Byron. So it's been one of those good news, bad news things where you continue to drive the economic growth of the community, but it also puts a strain on the school district and the facilities that we need as well. So, but I don't know if anybody's got any additional questions at all.
Did I see something where they're gonna put a lift station on the south side of Highway 14 now too?
They are planning on putting a lift station on the south side of Highway 14, yes.
So again, potential maybe future development south of the highway too, which
Yep.
more students for.
Yep. The other thing that I noticed on that was that they are going to, in order to salvage some of the businesses along the frontage road and like the Lutheran Church, they're actually going to reroute Highway 14 a little bit farther south, and they've got drawings and schematics of it. And just south of the current Z facilities, Highway 14 will be coming south of the current Z facilities, almost right up next to the Z property, going through the remote farm and coming back around in an effort to salvage some of that business along the frontage there. So, like I say, it's all on the website. You can see the schematics on there as well. So.
Who knows when it's gonna get done?
Well, they were saying probably at the earliest 10 years and maybe as long as 20 years before we'd see the interchanges going. So, timeline's not tomorrow, so.
Thank you, Matt, for the report. And just instead of sending Matt, or I'm not sure how you guys have set up who's gonna go to the next meetings or whatever for the city council. Have you guys talked about that?
Haven't really talked about it yet.
Okay. If you wanna get a schedule out and give the schedule to Ann type of deal. And then any reports, maybe send to Ann and she can just piggyback on.
Yep, when I was on there, I just remoted in and did screenshots of what they were showing, so it made it really easy to be able to take notes when you could do screenshots on the iPad.
That's great. All right, next one is 9.5, approve open enrollment agreement. Back to page.
Yep, so this is our first meeting in January, is where we look at and approve our open enrollment agreements for the coming school year. So you have information in front of you for our current paperwork that we have for open enrollment in our K-12 schools. So recommendation for the board tonight is review those and approve our open enrollment agreements.
Any discussion on this?
I have to say that with our schools being so cramped, and more building coming in with new housing, to me it seems like our open enrollment numbers are awfully high. I think we hit 20%, I believe, overall, and people are, the natives are getting restless. People kind of complain that we're having to build schools for non-resident people. And to me, it would make sense if we have a new building, yeah, we have some open enrollment to fill the classrooms, but then as the local population grows, we have less room, so open enrollment would decline. I don't think I'm seeing that here. It seems like we've maintained 15, 16, and it's growing instead of reducing. So that concerns me.
Would this increase our class sizes?
No, we still have our board approved class sizes, so.
And how many kindergartners are we projecting then total? Just curious.
Total enrollment for next year, probably about 180 is what we're looking at. That's a number that we're still trying to pin down.
Right.
Right now we have 177, and 16 of the 177 are waiting to register, seeing how pandemic looks like. So if we were to get in a situation like we are this year, hopefully that's not the case, those 16 could drive that number down. So I think they're going to take a wait and see approach, which I think is important with the open enrollment numbers.
So this 180, is that with these open enrolled students in?
Yep.
And we're currently at what right now for kindergarten?
Current enrollment?
Just kindergarten.
For kindergarten is 173. So the board has a way to manage this too, but the next gen item is you have also the ability to close sections, and that would start a wait list again, so you can, for example, permit open enrollment, get those numbers in, it helps with our financial planning. We know what our numbers are. You could also, we still have room for resident growth based on a 180 number and the space to do that. And if we have, for example, a kindergarten section that's closed tonight, we can still monitor the open enrollment as we get into the coming months to see what our resident enrollment is looking like, and then the board can revisit any of those closed sections to allow them in.
I think kindergarten's getting a little bit close to where I think we need to look at closing right now for that, and then we can always revisit that later.
Yeah, to put the two items together, is recommendation would be to approve, and then if we move past that, is my recommendation for the board tonight would be to close kindergarten so we can monitor what that comes in and revisit that at future board meetings.
Would it be appropriate to suggest that we just take the ones that are grandfathered and have siblings attending and then leave the rest on a wait list so that we can allow some room for growth, but still be respectful of parents that are not gonna have to drop kids off at two different locations because they've got siblings that are attending, and leave a wait list for the, 6 or 8 that are?
We have 15 that are without siblings.
Okay. Would that be an appropriate request, or?
Certainly, we can do that.
And would next say we could leave the rest on the wait list and take a look at what our organic growth would be if we got people moving in?
Yep, you certainly can do that. I would say one thing the board wants to be aware of too is families are planning for the year, so there could be potential that if they were gonna wait till February or even longer, that they may have to make family plans differently and they may not be there, but doesn't mean that you can't do that.
When would we, I mean, if we do, that wait list, what time then would the board wanna come back and say, we're gonna vote on these 16 students on the wait list, or it might be more, how far out do you wanna hold that?
What's the average time that we need to make a decision on this?
We typically do it tonight.
Okay.
But doesn't mean that you have to.
Sure.
To answer your question, Harvey, you could notice a special meeting at the work session to review over the next 2 weeks what enrollment looks like. Notice a special meeting for the work session where you would end work session, go into special meeting, review open enrollment and approve there. Or you could wait until the regular board meeting on the 16th, sorry, 16th of February. That would give you about a month to do, so.
Do we feel that we have?
You also, I'm sorry, just to say that you also have people that are waiting out there, residents that have not registered because they don't know what is in store in the fall. So that could be, if we are back into a situation where we're not running in our typical fashion, that could change minds too.
And they don't have an absolute timeline right now that they have to register.
Yep.
We encourage.
Yeah,
it.
and we encourage it.
It'd be really
Yeah.
nice if they did.
Yeah,
We-
like-
we-
Right,
appreciate it.
right. And the other part is we're an achievement and integration district, so the January 15th timeline does not apply, so we take applications for open enrollment all year. So, doesn't mean we admit them, but we take them all year, the applications.
Yeah, so it's a little unusual because we have this group kind aside, so that also could affect our numbers. And-
Yep.
Yeah. And are these, people aware that, there is a possibility they could not be, or that we would be putting them, and were they expecting a time, I mean, I think. the
Just
answer
that
today
the board
is-
was approving open enrollment tonight,
Okay.
so there's no guarantee that, just because it's on the agenda, that they're automatically approved.
Okay.
So one question that I've got, I mean, if we're talking about 15, 16 kids here, I mean, does that put us in a bubble, doesn't put us in a bubble of the number of kindergarten teachers that we need?
It could, yep. So
Especially
we
if
will,
those other ones don't register for some reason.
right, so.
Right, because that would be the thing that I would prefer not to do, is not be, if we need this many students in order to maintain the current number of kindergarten teachers that we've got, then I think that we should approve them all right now. If it's an issue, let's say, I don't want to be throwing our teachers' lives in limbo where we don't need to, so then we've got to be pushing people around then either.
Well, and it's a little more than classroom teachers too, because there's specialists attached,
Right.
which also come with those kids to
Yep.
provide prep time, so it expands outside the classroom teachers as well.
So right now, though, if we were to accept all these kindergartners, we'd be going up by 10 to 15, or you said we were at 170 now, and this would be 180 something?
This would be 177,
And we're
right, and that's including the 16 that are waiting to register.
We're at 173 this year.
Okay.
So it's comparable.
Yeah, very
Yep.
Dr. Page, I'm on here too
Yep.
if anybody has questions. so-
Yeah, I didn't forget about you.
Came through the
I
ceiling.
did.
Hi, school board.
Yeah.
I concur with everything Dr. Page is saying too, that, we have 15 families that do not currently have siblings that have applied for open enrollment, and, they're kind of waiting for the decision, but then we also have families that are still waiting to see, so, take for instance, those 16 families decided to wait, and again, this is just a hypothetical, but we would have to remove those 16 from that 177.
Or if they decided to homeschool some of them also, which we've run into.
Correct.
Because of pandemic, so.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that number that we have, that we're talking about, 177, you said?
I think, and that, it's a good way to go right now, is that we keep that, we're not creating those bubbles like some that were there.
Yeah.
That are several years down the road that we weren't here to see.
Yeah.
But anyways, we should try and alleviate some of those bubbles that are in there, but also to, make sure that
I
we're,
like the continuity.
that we're not going beyond a point two, so that we do have that option tonight of saying we're gonna close kindergarten, so then we can kind of get into where Matt's at, we can wait and have some that are on a waiting list to decide down the road, do we let them in or do we not, based on what we're seeing from those community ones that are hanging out there yet. And continue to balance out and stay in that 180, no more than 180.
Right.
Where we're comfortable.
Yeah.
That's a good number to work with.
Yep.
For the kindergarten, that's a good, incoming class size. We're very excited about, looking at the enrollment and the projections, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Amanda or Dr. Page?
So our final recommendation would be to do what then, Dr. Page?
So, just to go back to the original recommendation was to approve the open enrollments that we've received tonight.
Okay.
And then
We'll come back around.
and then a future or next agenda item, I'll make a recommendation for the board to consider for closing sections.
Well, thank you for clarifying.
Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the open enrollments that we currently have, that we discussed tonight.
I second.
Yeah, we can take roll call.
Emmy?
Aye.
Mike?
No.
Matt?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye. Next on the agenda, close open enrollment grades, Dr. Page?
Yes. So it seems like it's been a while since we've talked about open enrollment. Recommendation for the board would be to close kindergarten open enrollment at this time.
So moved.
Second.
For next school year. Okay.
And we're not looking at any other grade levels?
Not right now.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, should we take a roll call?
Yep. Let me make sure I have this right. Craig?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Emmy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye. Okay, thank you for that. 9.7, amendment for the ZED. Okay, Dr. Page.
So board, before you is an amended resolution to the ZED building. Just some background, this was previously approved at the July 2020 board meeting. ZED is going to have each board, or each member district ratify, revote on these resolutions during the 2021 meeting here in January tonight. The reason behind this is the resolutions all contain an expiration date, and the initial approval with the 6-member district became stale or expired on 12/31/20. The common municipal practice is that this type of approval is only valid for 6 months. So just that the past resolution expired, so really this is just a date change.
I have to read the resolution. Amended resolution ratifying concurrency with a proposed project through the insurance of certification of participation series 2021A for Zumbro Education District. Motion.
I move we pass the amended ZED resolution.
Okay,
I
second.
would second.
Okay, Dan and Matt. Then roll call, Matt.
Then Mike?
Aye.
Emmy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye. 9.8.
Yes. This is our annual resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions as reasons therefore.
Okay, and the resolution reads, a resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reduction in program and positions and reasons therefore.
I would move to approve the resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions and reasons therefore.
Second.
Discussion. Heard it asked that last time. Dan?
Okay. Matt?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Emmy?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye. Okay, and Emmy, I think you need to sign this after the meeting.
Sure.
Okay. 9.9, approval of policy 808 revisions.
Yes, this was a policy that was approved this summer regarding our face covering policy. The governor updated the executive order to 2103. So this policy is just to revise our current policy and makes note of the governor's executive order. Also within that is a change regarding, that was in the governor's executive order regarding engaging in indoor physical activity and where the masks need to be worn.
Motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Yeah.
So Craig?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Emmy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Harvey?
Aye. Miscellaneous, Dr. Page.
Yeah, just a couple of miscellaneous items I just wanted to bring attention to tonight. One, I just want to thank our athletics department, John Buchanan, Christine Zabel, all of their work. And of course, the coaches and players, but just getting us ready to get back to activities on January 14th. So I know they put in a tremendous amount of time with communications and just making all of the magic happen. So I just want to thank them for their work. Couple students I want to recognize. I don't know if you've seen the paper yet today, the Pulse Bulletin. Samantha Solberg, a 9th grader at Byron High School, was recognized through the Rochester Diversity Council on her poem, Life Seals You in a Path. And that was part of MLK Day, and she was recognized in her poems in the Pulse Bulletin today. So if you get a chance to see that, check it out. And you know, anything to add to that?
Just that she was in Whitney Trinan's class.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
No, that's
Miss
okay.
Brandon's class,
That's
yes.
the only other thing I'd add, yeah.
Yeah, And then the other one is just a press release that's going to go out on Saturday, January 16th. The Hiawatha League Conference began its annual One Act Festival. It was a little different this year. It was held virtually. Emerging from this group as conference champions was Byron and Casson Manorville. So I want to congratulate our Byron Bears and also the Casson Manorville Comets. All conference performer was Christina Kelly from Byron. So we're taking care of getting some more information on that, but that just happened prior to the today's board meeting. So just want to recognize those individuals.
Can I add on to your comments on activities too? I want to say a thank you to all the staff and the students that are involved with putting the videos out for us on YouTube to watch.
Yeah.
You keep up with wrestling and girls basketball, boys basketball. It's been really great to have those there since we can't go attend the games in person. It's nice to be able to at least root on from home. So I just want to thank everybody that's involved with putting that out there for us to be able to enjoy that still.
The girls are at 41 to 16 at the half.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's great.
I have a couple of miscellaneous too. If you have not signed up for the negotiation conference or the officer training conference, please make sure you do and call Ann for that. I have met with Matt and Sharon so far with Dr. Page for like a half hour, just a get to know type of meeting. So if the rest of you, Jen and Craig and Emma and Mike, if you want to touch with Ann and tell her what days you might be open, and then she'll get in touch with us to find a time for it. Anything earlier than 7:30, I'm not sure if I can make So just to keep that in mind. And then last Thursday, as we know, we had the MSBA conference. It was totally different from the years past where you had watched on the screen. I was kind of, not just, the conference was great, but it was so much different than being there and having somebody on stage talking, presenting to you. And I felt sorry for them because they just had to be there and they're talking to a screen, and I'm going, I bet you'd love to be on stage and you could move around and point to people and talk to people and that kind of stuff. The next one is this Thursday again, and then next Thursday. That's all I have. Anybody else have any miscellaneous? Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ann?
Matt,
Ann?
Yeah.
Take roll call.
Okay.
Dan?
Hi.
Craig?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Amy?
I
Aye. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
meeting.